evening. I'd like to welcome you on location to Talking with Colerain Township. I'm very fortunate to have us here at the Colerain Gateway Memorial with Administrator Jim Rowan.
Thanks, Jason. Good to be here.
Glad you could join us, Jim, as well. Frank Birkenhaur, glad you could join us because we've got a lot to discuss here with some recent developments of what's going to be happening with the township.
Absolutely.
As of Tuesday, this past week, the trustees met in regards to what is coming up as the JEDZ. And a lot of people probably are still a little leery as to what exactly is this, so that's why we're getting together and discussing this. So let's start from point A, as I like to do, and discuss what is a JED and why is Colerain Township going towards this?
Sure. Well, a JEDZ is going to allow the township to raise revenue in the form of an income tax that we have identified specifically for public infrastructure. It's one of two mechanisms that we have, a property tax being one, or an income tax. And you know, we felt like being the third highest taxing district from a property perspective, that going back and asking for a road levy is too much for our residents. So the JEDZ allows us to put before the voters a 1% payroll tax on a JED zone, which we'll describe here in a little bit, that will actually generate revenue so that we can specifically use for public infrastructure. JEDZs can actually be structured many different ways. We could have actually put that those JEDZs could have been used for police, public safety, fire, administration, a number of different purposes. But we believe that we have to invest money for economic development purposes back in public infrastructure, both within the zone and also our neighborhoods. So we felt that by keeping this really structured on public infrastructure, repairing streets and curbs and gutters and sidewalks is in the best interest of our community. Now, why a JEDZ? Well, a JEDZ gives us the opportunity to not property tax our residents. It also gives us the opportunity to provide a grant back to our residents and to our businesses located within the zone. So what that means for somebody that works in this corridor is that if I work there and I'm a resident of Colerain Township, I have to pay this 1% earnings tax. But at the end of the year, I can apply for a refund, and that refund would be in the form of a grant back to that resident from the Colerain CIC, equal to the amount of money they paid in. So essentially they're held harmless. Sure. Same thing with the business operating in the zone. It allows them, they would have to pay the net profits tax, but at the end of the year, they can apply for a grant that would provide that money back in the form of a check equal to the amount of the net profits tax. What that allows us to do is capture revenue from people that don't live within Colerain Township, but come in and utilize our services every day. If they work in the zone, they benefit from our fire, our EMS, our public infrastructure in and out of the township. So now we can generate revenue from those outside the township rather than constantly taxing our residents.
Now, you had said that, you know, obviously we're focusing on public infrastructure and the changes there. That stipulation, that change comes from the state that can, like you said, you could have gone into the police and the fire, but we're okay in those areas, and of course,
yes,
this is where was where that decision was made.
Yeah, it was really a local decision. I think many of the communities that have passed JEDZs have decided to have it more broad. Okay. And I think that has caused some anxiety at the state level, and that's why they are changing the law with regards to JEDZs. And this is our last opportunity to get that passed before the new law goes into effect January 1st. Right. We just passed a police levy. Our fire funding is in good shape for the next several years, and we felt that to do anything other than public infrastructure, that is the need that we have right now, and we hear that every day from our residents. Our streets are deteriorating, our sidewalks are deteriorating. What are you going to do about it? We don't have any funding for that. Our last road levy passed in 2001. With the loss in funding from the state tax and the local government fund, that $1.5 million used to be used to fund public infrastructure, repair our streets. Those funds have dried up now. So if we can't find an alternative revenue source to pay for our public infrastructure, we're going to have to make additional cuts to non-essential services such as our parks, our community center, and areas that are very important to this community but are not essential, such as your fire and police.
Right, and again, those are those things that we were talking in previous episodes as well as here, is that these are those core driving forces that keep people in the township.
Absolutely.
So also, you were saying that those who do live in the township and work here, who get the rebate, basically, as you would call it, from the CIC, that is self-driven. They have to do that on their own. That's not something that you're going to come knocking on their door and say, hey, did you remember to do your your rebate, correct?
That's correct. There'll be an education campaign that will have grant applications in which they can apply for. So they'll pay the tax throughout the year, and it'll follow a very similar structure to what happens on tax day.
Okay.
So like by April 15th, they'll have to file a grant form with the CIC, and then we'll process that after we verify that yes, it was paid in, yes, they are a resident or a business in the zone, and then that check will be mailed back to them.
I think that's a smart idea to keeping with tax season. That way people don't get too confused. Did I do it? Did I not? Is that something traditional with most JEDZs or working with this grant program?
It's my understanding it is in a couple of townships that are doing them now. The residential piece is an automatic. Some don't always grant back the net profits tax, but we felt that here in Colerain Township it was important to try to protect the small businesses along Colerain Avenue and to provide that grant back.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the zone for those who are curious. Frank, I think this is probably your bailiwick here. For a lot of people think when they hear this JEDZ, most people think, well, it's going to blanket the township, and it's not true. We're actually specifically targeting an area.
Yeah, there's been some very liberal definitions of the JEDZ, and I think that's one of the reasons why the state had some problems, is because of some of the other communities up north and some of the things they were doing with, you know, maybe not keeping within the total spirit of intent of a JED zone.
Okay.
Right now, the area where we're at, Springdale and Colerain, is one of the busiest intersections in the state of Ohio.
Fair.
With one of the busiest intersections is also one of the highest accident rates as well. Even though we did improvements to Colerain Avenue a few years ago, with just the sheer number of 60,000 cars a day passing by us, you're going to have a tremendous amount of services associated with accidents. With the retail zone as well, you have, you know, let's face it, shoplifting, people having medical problems maybe at the area that they're shopping. There's a lot of services that are consumed servicing a 3.5 million square feet retail area such as Colerain Avenue. So the JED zone is basically taking the income tax, the payroll tax from this zone, which will run from basically from Galbraith and Colerain up to Struble and Colerain, but it'll also go down the contiguous retail areas down Springdale, Compton, Struble, and trying to think of any other cross streets there. That covers the major ones. Stone Creek Boulevard, obviously to get Stone Creek Town Center.
Sure.
So those areas are all encompassed in the JED zone. The question is why did you not go south of Galbraith? Well, we just went to the state of Ohio, and the area we call it Groesbeck has really suffered from some disinvestment lately. You look around where we are now, and we have about $45 million in new development that's just come online in the past year and a half. We've had great success. When I get a call from a business that's interested, most of the time I hear, can you get me in between Cross County and the 275 corridor? So we're at Main and Main here, where the epicenter of development is taking place. If we can garner some of that income tax and put it towards our infrastructure in the township and in the JED zone as well. It's a 50% in the JED zone, 50% on the outside of the zone. You can spend it on that. But the retailers, one of the reasons why they're successful are the demographics and the people that shop there. And if our roads are in a state of deterioration, people aren't moving here, young families, infrastructure is one of the biggest issues that have been brought up by many of our residents. It's one of the most basic duties that the townships have, according to the state of Ohio, is to maintain their roads. And right now we don't have funding for that. And instead of going back for another road levy and asking for that, this JED zone can do both. We have some issues within the zone in terms of turning into Stone Creek Town Center at the former Haver Coast Drive. There's a real gridlock there because the stacking is inadequate turning left in. And the former manager of the Meyer store said, you know, people aren't turning left into there and they're going around. And sometimes when it's really busy, I'm concerned somebody might just pass by my business. So if we can invest and keep these retailers, this 3 million square feet plus, in the JED zone, keep the traffic flowing and safe through money through the JED zone, we're doing well. And then conversely, revitalizing our city or township streets and our subdivisions, I think it'll serve well for these businesses that operate on Colerain Avenue.
Well, obviously, when we talk about this, these are things that just won't happen overnight were this to continue forward, and if this does end up going onto the ballot and passing, or whatever happens to it. long term, obviously, you've got a short-term idea of where you'd like to start planning. But long term, obviously, you probably, I know Jim, you look out at least 5 years.
Sure.
Where are you envisioning where this will go?
Well, the first thing we have to do is identify how much actual revenue will the township net as a result of this zone. We're not going to go spending we think it's going to generate about $1 million.
Okay.
Until we verify that, and we've gone through a year of refunds in the form of grants, and we really know what that income source is, we're going to really walk slowly in what we do. And Frank makes a very good point. We have a lot of needs in the zone, but we also have a lot of needs within the neighborhoods.
Yes.
And if we do not put investment in our neighborhoods and we see foreclosures and neighborhoods deteriorating, that's going to do nothing but deteriorate our zone, because the people that they need to shop in the zone are in those communities that surround that. So it has to be a balance. And we also look at this as a balanced approach. I mean, we've identified about $2.2 million a year in need in just our neighborhoods. This is going to generate about $1 million. So it's not even generating enough revenue to really meet our need.
Right.
If you take 50% of that and you put it within the zone, we've got a long time before we ever really get ahead of the curve. So what we'll do after the first couple of years of collections, we're going to look at what that revenue stream looks like. We're going to look at how the economic development's happening. We may actually go out there and think about issuing some debt and borrowing some funds to be able to do some investment immediately in our neighborhoods and within the corridor, and use that revenue stream to repay that debt. Debt's at an all-time low right now with interest rates, so if we can leverage that and infuse this economic development and this investment within our community and pay that, and I'm not talking long-term debt, I'm talking maybe 10 years. Let's get out there and get some stuff done in the next 10 years. That's something I want to think about and look at, rather than just putting $500,000 in the neighborhoods and $500,000 in the corridor every year. I want to make a real impact here in the community, so we may have to do some leveraging there in the short term.
Playing the advocate here, most people will kind of look and go, you're right, we're at the epicenter here. We've seen great revitalization here at the mall. We're starting to see the Stone Creek getting its capstone, so to speak. We're seeing all these great developments. So why would we really need this JED if everything's going okay economically? I'm sure you can just take the money somewhere.
Well, the issue is we do not have a funding source right now for public infrastructure, period. As a township, our three core responsibilities are police, fire, and roads. And, Colerain's a very unique community in that we have state roads, we have county roads, and we have township roads.
So you do have all three.
And trying to distinguish to the normal resident, well, is this a county road, a state road, or a township road, is sometimes difficult. But we do know that without having a funding source to resurface and repave and fix our crumbling sidewalks, it's hard to attract new residents to come in here. A community oftentimes prospers based on the economic development, the residential conditions, the school district. There are a lot of components that make you a best-in-class community. And the road program in Colerain Township is one right now that we don't have a solution for. This JEDZ is a great opportunity for us to find ways to invest in public infrastructure without financially hitting our residents. If we're not successful, then we're going to have to look at alternatives. How are we going to be able to infuse capital into our public infrastructure program? And without an additional source of revenue, something's going to have to suffer, and we don't want that to happen.
And we're certainly at a critical point in terms of our infrastructure. If you use the example of your driveway, that you don't seal your driveway, you get this new concrete in, and then pretty soon your driveway, if you don't treat it and take care of it, it's going to be full loss, and you're going to have to get a whole new driveway.
Right.
We have streets that are at a total loss right now that have to be totally reconstructed. We have other streets that if we seal them and we put a coat of blacktop, then we can have those last for a few more years. But one of our previous public works directors had the canoes going over a waterfall. That we're trying to keep those canoes back from falling over the waterfall by maintaining our streets. But right now we don't have a funding source to do that, and this JEDZ is a great opportunity for that. Plus, we're not all taking the same bite at the apple. I would think that the school district, they passed a levy, we passed our police levy. We're not going back to the property tax owner again and saying, hey, we need more money. This JEDZ is an alternative to that. And for that matter, they just passed a police levy. There's a lot of police runs on this 3 million square feet of retail space that in some cases, I heard a resident say, well, you know, we're paying a lot to service these businesses. And in some respects, that is correct. The businesses pay property tax also, but they probably have a lot more people being called to, say, a Walmart store than they do your house.
Right.
So with that being the case, the fact that these retail corridor businesses are going to pay an income tax, they can help balance this and keep our tax rate lower for our residents. And it's a great marketing tool for young families and so forth. I mean, we have other communities that are facing very large levies in the future just to provide these basic services. If we can use this as an alternative to raising their property taxes, then we're going to keep those families in Colerain Township.
And again, that was one of the things that you had stated. Everyone pretty much had stated in a previous town hall meeting, not the most recent one, but a previous one, saying that we don't want to come to you for this.
Right.
We've always said that. Now, of course, the attraction for new business as well as new family, what a better way to bring them home, obviously, with a new road. But again, you can't look at something if you don't have the funds to do so.
Sure.
And there's so many projects. Someone said, well, how are you going to spend this? And, you know, do you have projects? We have $2 million a year in our residential streets, and we have literally millions of dollars in projects on Colerain Avenue that still need to be done. Some were still in the books from the Colerain Avenue Task Force that was finalized in 1998. One of those is the Bowerwood and Greenbrush, trying to realign that neighborhood to a traffic signal to allow those people to get safely in and out. I mean, that's probably a $1.2 million project, but it's a worthy project. We also would like to build more access roads between the businesses on Colerain to take some of the traffic off mainline Colerain Avenue. We don't have a funding for these. We did it with some of this through TIF, okay. And at this point, some of our TIFs are going offline, but TIF has to be on new development and typically not existing unless you're going to have a massive increase in your valuation. So with this tax revenue, we can have an alternative to TIF in funding this infrastructure. And instead of with TIFs, typically you're taking from other entities, some of the county levies, the school levy, it's capturing 75% of that for 10 years. So this is going to provide the revenue source from an income tax perspective instead of a property tax.
And if anyone were to be working or living inside a township or outside of the township to the city or whatever, they would have to be paying a tax as it is anyway.
Absolutely.
You know, and if you're a resident of Colerain and you work in the city of Cincinnati, you're not going to be impacted by this whatsoever. This is going to be strictly on the people that work in the zone, which is going to be basically Colerain Avenue, the side streets from Struble to Galbraith. If you don't work in that zone, you will not be impacted by this whatsoever. And even if you do work in that zone, while you have to pay that 1% tax initially, all they have to do is file the grant at the end of the year to get that checked back in grant form. So it's a win-win for this community. We can generate a tax, improve our public infrastructure without having to come back and actually add more taxes to our residents.
Do you think that by, I guess, semantics as it is, most people are afraid, you know, you would use the word tax, which it is, you're levying a tax, but not calling it a tax, it's not oppressive to everyone, I guess would be the origin. Do you think that's the semantics, the scary part of it, that a resident may not understand, see tax, as that most people do on a ballot and say, no, thank you?
Well, this is going to be interesting. They actually won't see the word tax on the ballot. It's actually, the language is very interesting. It is, do you support the contract between Colerain Township and the city of Harrison? Are you for the contract and resolution or against the contract and resolution? And that's where the education campaign comes in, is to let people know that that for means yes and the against means no, so that they understand what that means. And yeah, it is very difficult. It's very confusing. People don't understand. We've had people ask us, well, if you're going to grant back the money to the businesses and to the residents that are working in the zone, then why are you taxing them to begin with? Why not just exempt it from taxation? Well, we can't. The law says you have to pay the tax. We've been able to create this economic development arm called the CIC that will basically allow us to provide a check back to them in the form of a grant. So it's not a rebate, it's not a refund, it's a grant. It just happens to equal the amount of tax that they paid in, so that essentially they're held harmless.
And that grant will never change. It will always be in place, if it were to be voted in, that this will always be in place, and that you will get that rebate, so to speak, as long as you file.
That's correct. And the 1% won't change either.
Okay.
Because the new law changed, this plan had to go before a JED council. It was chaired by the county auditor, 4 of the top businesses within the community, and 2 other representatives. And they approved the plan on a 601 vote. The representative from Rumpke abstained from the vote. So by approving that plan, it allowed us to get to this point. That law that recently passed back in late May, early June, required that intermediate step of going before this council. Had that not happened, we would not have been able to put this to the vote of the community. So, you know, unfortunately, it's one less thing that townships now have in their toolbox to be able to create revenue. Fortunately for Colerain, we were able to get that on the ballot, and now it's up to our community, and hopefully they'll see the need for this and step up and make the right decision.
And I think it's a win-win. The businesses, 2 of the businesses that were on our Economic Review Council was Meijer and the Walmart. So you look at Walmart, why is it that one exit up, they're paying an income tax of maybe 2%, and then the person in Colerain pays nothing? And from their standpoint, just talking to some of them, it's almost an equity issue. How do we explain to our employees, hey, you get the Walmart in Colerain, they get the same amount of services and so forth, cleaning the roads on their way to the to work and so forth, and they get a higher price in Colerain for their wage. And from their standpoint, they voted for this because they look at it as almost an equity issue. Kroger, one exit up, North College Hill, they're paying an income tax. They're paying an income tax in Forest Park. So we're basically capturing. Most of the national tenants are located in the area of the zone. Okay. I mean, you look at Macy's is in Tri-County and Springdale, and most of those locations around us of the same business, same brand, are paying income tax elsewhere.
So there it is. Now, the other portion of this that you did mention, and that we were going to get to this, you mentioned the city of Harrison, and this is where you're making this joint venture together, correct?
Correct.
If I'm not mistaken, you chose Harrison because well, I guess I need to ask the question. I know my answer, but to the resident as well. You chose Harrison, but ... why?
We did an RFP, and I wanted to make sure, because this is a first for Colerain Township, an income tax. I wanted to make certain that the communities that we had partnered with would be able to accommodate the large size of this zone, because a very small city, I might have some concerns with their staffing levels and otherwise of their ability to impose an income tax and enforce that on such a large area. With that being the case, we did an RFP, and we did City of Cheviot, who we've partnered with on a district down on a nursing home. We asked the Forest Park and the City of Harrison, those 3. And City of Harrison came back with the best share of the revenue. They are taking 8.5%. And actually, if you look at the other JED zones in the area, Sycamore, Springfield, otherwise, I think we have one of the highest rates going back to the township, and we are very pleased that they were so aggressive in wanting to do this, and I think it's going to be a great partnership. They also use RETA, State Income Tax Collection Authority, and RETA has a great method of collecting that tax and a great record, and they're a known entity, so we felt very comfortable with that as well.
I think it's important to note that we had to partner with a municipality because as a township, we do not have the right to levy a tax, an income tax. So we had to find a municipality that has an income tax rate, and it had to be at least at the 1% level or above for us to be able to levy that much of an income tax. If the city of Harrison only had the right to levy 0.5%, then that would have been our limit. Now, I believe the city of Harrison can actually go higher than 1%, but once again, our economic development plan, as approved by the council, is restricted at 1% for the life of this JEDZ. So it will be a 1% now, and that will not change during the life of the JEDZ.
And once this goes into effect, if this were to go into effect, say it gets voted in November, we go January 1, we start?
It'll be very close to January 1. I don't anticipate that by the time we get the implementation of the board created and all the forms, we're thinking probably January 1 would be the effective date, although it could be December 1st.
Okay. And so at this point, when people are filing, it would be for a short amount of time. So it's almost like kind of getting your feet wet, getting used to this and then by the next year it would be a full year's worth.
That's
at that
correct.
point. Interesting. Okay. Well, it looks like this would be the direction to go. I obviously the board has approved it to go forward to the ballot. I guess we have to wait and see what the residents, of course, say. You know, it's hard to say. You know, we've gone through some heavy things. We just went through the police levy. It sounds like there is support behind you, but of course, as in anything, there's always going to be the pro and the con.
Right. Well, and it comes down to education.
Sure.
And we filed the paperwork with the Board of Elections yesterday, and we're preparing a newsletter similar to what we just sent out regarding the Rumpke expansion, and that will get out to all the residents explaining what the JEDZ is all about. And then there will be a campaign committee working on this issue as well. But it is a matter of educating the community so that they understand what it is, and then so when they go in there and vote, they can make an informed decision.
Well, it looks like we're going on the right path, at least to get us going to where we need to be here at the township. And again, with everything that we've seen so far, why stop the machine rolling?
Well, we'll have links set up on our website with information, questions and answers. That should be out there within the next 3 to 4 weeks, and we'll send information out to the community. And just encourage, if they have any questions, either call me or Frank, email us, and we'll be glad to answer their questions.
And while we're on the topic, Frank, of new things going on, business-wise, economically, how are we doing? And I mean, we are here at this grand corner of great change.
Yes, yes. We're doing very well, and I think that if you talk to the residents, they're noticing the difference. They're going down to Colerain. I've received so many compliments in terms of what the township is doing with the streetscape plan, and this streetscape plan was developed a few years ago, and we're building that out. This infrastructure associated with the streetscape plan could also be something that could be funded through the JEDZ as well. And something that we found out and we've learned with Stone Creek Boulevard is when you did the boulevard, the landscape entrance, the decorative lights, we landed some really good tenants in Stone Creek, and we have now a $50 million shopping center. And the township trustees at the time passed a TIF and invested about $4.2 million into infrastructure on and around the Stone Creek Town Center. If we can utilize this JEDZ to keep this corridor healthy, we're not only going to continue to experience the success we've had here, but hopefully we're going to get that back in Groesbeck. Groesbeck is one of our oldest neighborhoods in this community, and it's vital that we revitalize that great area in Colerain Township.
Well, it's the only way that you can do that give back. You have to start somewhere, and if you don't have the momentum going, which you're gaining, and now hopefully with the JEDZ to be able to do so, you can bring it back. Sounds like a great win-win for everyone. Hopefully the next time, the next time we'll be talking about this will more than likely be at our election forum. So we will see that, knowing that the papers are filed. We'll see you at an election forum here soon.
Look forward to it.
But until then, any other parting words? Because we are running to the low part of the time.
Thanks for the opportunity to spend some time on this beautiful day.
Oh, it's a wonderful day.
Showcase our memorial here, and there's a lot more exciting economic development coming throughout the corridor, and the movie theater's on track. It's coming along really well.
I forgot to ask, so we're still a go, and everything's still good.
Yeah, if you haven't seen the movie theater construction site, by all means go there, because they've got the walls up now, and it's they are on a fast track to get that open as soon as possible. So hopefully by Thanksgiving this year we will be seeing a new state-of-the-art township theater there.
And again, going with the idea that here we will have probably not just township residents, but people from around the area coming in, going to this new facility that we will need some assistance.
Yes.
So
it's an exciting time, that's for certain.
That is
a time of great change, but it's been very exciting.
And again, trying to tie this all together is that new things are very scary. And again, as Frank mentioned, and Jim, you've always said, things are new, and this is something new that the township has never experienced before. We don't know what will happen, but we can speculate to the greatness that can happen. We wouldn't know until we try.
That's right.
And it looks like there are people involved that are willing to try.
Absolutely.
Certainly.
So I'm going to go take a look at the cinema. I haven't taken a look at it, so it's a great day, so I can take a walk. Frank, Jim, thanks for joining us here tonight.
Thank you.
Of course, and again, we'll be talking again. This is probably election time.
Sounds great.
Scary to think, but it's almost here. I also want to thank you for joining us as well. If you want to join us on a beautiful day like this, you could be out here as well. 825-2429. That's our phone number at the studio. You can give us a call. Be a part of this great magic that makes community access available to you. I'm Jason Grzegorek, Waycross Community Media's Government Access Coordinator, giving you the opportunity to talk with Colerain Township. Have a great evening, and we'll talk to you soon.